He has a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science. He has a Master's in Environmental Policy. And in 2015, he received the Presidential Service Award from President Obama for his dedication to the environment. And he's got some interesting news for you, too.
Thank you. Hello, Democrats! First, let me say, I had to check to make sure I wasn't wearing the right thing. I think I'm good. So, let me tell you, thank you for the introduction. So, since the primary of last year, I still travel this state and this nation talking about what I am passionate about. And that is the environment. It's climate change, it's water issue, it's our coastal communities. And for this past year plus, I have been meeting with many people from both sides of the aisle. Because for us to get things done in Tallahassee and in Washington, we have to work together. And even though we may not see eye to eye, it's finding that compromise that moves us to one side. And the further we move, the further we can start changing policy to benefit all Floridians. Are you with me on that?
Yeah.
So I had the opportunity, and about 2 months ago, to meet with the Chief Science Officer here in Florida, who was appointed by the current governor. And let me tell you, I was really iffy about going in and meeting with him and talking about the environment. And I read his research, his papers that was published. I Googled him and I read everything he wrote. And let me tell you, he is very well respected within the scientific field. Now, I don't know what party he belonged to, but he made it very clear to me that his policies that he's directing the current administration isn't based on politics right now. It's based on finding a solution to a water crisis, and that's what I want to briefly talk on today. Now, one of the things that the Chief Science Officer did was he put together this red tide, blue green allergy committee of well-respected science people from the industry, researchers, scientists, ecologists, people who specialize in water, and it wasn't about party based. Believe me, I had to vote of 5. I looked them up. Now, I was really pleased to hear his side on the red tides. Yes, the red tide occurs naturally, and right now it's affecting our coastal communities right now, but you don't see it in the news. But what's happening is the water up in the Panhandle, that's where the red tide is usually at, is still coming down, and it's still hurting industries here along the coast in Sarasota. It hasn't made it on the other coast yet. This is mainly in the Sarasota area. Now, he made his mission with this panel, this committee, to find a solution by working with scientists, and I can really respect that. Now, something that I'm really passionate about is climate change. You with me on this? When I was looking for the state of Florida as a biological scientist, I wasn't allowed to talk about that. I wasn't allowed to write it. In fact, I got blacked out when I write climate change. But I still said it, and I resigned from my post with the state of Florida, and I started getting active in the political arena. And that's one of the main reasons why I started to run for a Commissioner of Agriculture, is it wasn't about politics. It's about that politics got in the way of my science. And I wasn't gonna let that happen. And since then, I have been traveling this nation and the state of Florida, talking about our environment. I wrote my thesis on building a native sand dune along the coast of Florida. And it's something that I had started a few years ago. And today, I have done over 200 miles of one continuous sand dune in South Florida, from Palm Beach County, Broward, and Miami-Dade. Now, I live in South Florida. I'm actually down in Miami-Dade County in Homestead. And climate change in South Florida is a big issue. Because with the rising tide, comes water intrusion into our aquifer. And in Broward County right now, saltwater intrusion is in all water. So if you turn on the faucet, it's a little bit yellow and a little bit salty. Not very good. But let me tell you that our officials, elected officials in South Florida and the water processing aspect does an amazing job on making sure that water is safe and below the requirement levels when it comes to different chemicals within the tap water. Now, you may be thinking, what am I talking about tap water? Well, me personally, I prefer tap water over bottled water. And I'll tell you a brief story on why. Number one, well, let me tell you this. You guys familiar with Nestle? You familiar with the big issue happening not too far from here? Down the Santa Fe River? I'm going to look at my notes real quick, just so I get the facts right. Now, the Santa Fe River is our main source of water through North and Central Florida. There are over 60 springs going into the Santa Fe River. In fact, this is where the villages get their water from. And Nestle purchased 7 different corporations in the state of Florida, one of which has a permit that costs that one company $115 to allow this corporation to pipe the water from the Santa Fe River, this spring. Make sure I get my data correct. I don't want to give you the wrong information. So the Santa Fe River, and with this $100 and $15 permit, which is going to be approved, unfortunately, most likely, by the current water management district, is now they're going to start pumping over 1.6 million gallons a year. And with that issue brings hardship to the environment. Sinkholes, the environment, more plastic bottles within being thrown away. What can we do about that? Make ourselves heard. And that's what I've been doing. I've been going to Tallahassee during committee weeks because there are current bills that are in the process of being talked at to put on the agenda for when the elected officials go back to Tallahassee. And some of those bills, which I'm not going to list them now because they haven't been approved, but could really benefit these large corporations and special interests who are taking our water, our public-owned water, for $115 permit to make billions off us. That's not right. That's not right. So I made it my mission, go around and educate people on what's going on right now, just right down the road at Santa Fe River. And as I stand here today, I can tell you I spoke to many elected officials already who I have on our side, on my side, to make sure that water from the rivers are not being used for profit. I'm against that, 100%. Now, when you look at a bottle of water and compare it to the top water, what's the difference? The plastic, yeah. Well, plastic, that's part of it. But ideally, bottled water companies is classified as food, meaning they are regulated by the FDA. Now, when you look at your water bottle, as long as it doesn't come in a big package, I mean, 12-pack, 24, it won't have it. It'll have it on a plastic wrap around it. But the bottle itself, the only thing that they are required to have is how many calories, how many sugar, how many trans fat. The little nutrition label on the side. Look at that. It's 00000. That's the only requirement the FDA requires bottle industries such as Nestle to have on their label. Now, they don't even manage the aspect of filtering the water. By law, these corporations literally just dump it up, fill it with water, the bottle of water, and sell it. By law, they can. And which is really sad. Compared to our local water, which is controlled by our cities and our government, where they have to release what's in the water, how they clean the process, and that's according to the, and be inspected by USDA, the federal government, and the state of Florida. So So even though we sometimes may get notices on different contaminants in the water, like fecal matter or whatever it may be within the water and the boil effect, it's still cleaner than bottled water. Now, I don't want to scare you on the effects of water and tap water, but I'll tell you a story back in 1994. Nestle has the bottling plant in Texas. And they bottled all this water and they shipped it to Alabama and Florida. 8 months later, they notified the federal government that they may have some crickets in the water. Crickets, which is proven after they got a few of the tests in water, because they had to hold water aside for that kind of data down the road. And it was tested for crickets. Another case was sand, glass, different other chemicals from the leaking plastics. But the thing is, the self-regulating industry is the plastic water, like Coca-Cola, Nestle, Pepsi. They self-regulate. Now, having crickets and these other things in the water, you would think to yourself, well, you have to do a recall. They're not required. By the time they notify, or if they even do notify, which they're not required to notify the general public, unlike a local city and local government does when they have their own issues. Now, they posted it with the federal government, and then they hide it within the website. It's there if you have to look. I went to the website looking for the paperwork. I typed in bottled water. 20 things popped up on different food processing things that have been canned in water, such as tuna. That's not what I was looking for. I want to know bottled water precisely. So I filed some more reports with the federal government and finally received the documents that I was looking for to see the data on how much was being recalled. And it was well less than 100 at the nation level. And I'm hearing stories like these crickets and sand and other chemicals, and comparing that to what's our city and county water is night and day. Because if there's an issue with our local government, they have to notify the public within a day. You'll get text messages, email, your phone might ring up, you'll be on the news. And most likely there's a boil effect, which will actually kill the chemicals inside. So it's nothing to worry. I don't want to convince pros and cons on water bottles, but personally, I prefer tap over bottled water, especially when the big corporation is making money off taking our public water. So with that, that's the water issue that's happening right now. And if it's okay with you all, I want to ask for your help and help me make our voices heard by hearing our elected officials. In this case, it's the Water Management District of Sumner County. Yes, to make sure that they hear our voice so that they don't approve this permit for Nestle. Because not only it'll affect us financially, it's going to affect us for generations down the road. You know, Central Florida is known for sinkholes. And when you pull water from the aquifer, that's one of the reasons why you're getting sinkholes in different areas. There's been sinkholes here in the villages not long ago. And it's all about what's happening, the water level in the aquifer. And we have this big corporation, which is more than one already. Nestle is just one of many. If all these big corporations come together and start pulling our aquifer, the water level goes down. The limestone will go down. Sinkholes will form. We live on limestone. The state of Florida is all limestone, and that's our livelihood. That's our water resources. So if it's okay, I want to send an email out to Chris, and maybe she can pass it out, and ask you to help me call our local water management district and say no to the permit and to Nestle. Are you with me? Fish and wildlife. I got my bachelor's in environmental science, fish and wildlife management. I work for the agency. And one of the things that I've done as a scientist is, outside of wildlife aspect, is our coral reef. For the past few months, I have been traveling and diving all throughout our state, looking at the hardship of our coral reef, from the bleaching and different diseases. And our coral reef, for example, from Key West all the way up to Palm Beach County, that's our first line of defense from storm surges, from hurricanes, but yet it's slowly dying. So I've been working with the state government and different nonprofits and fighting and educating people on the benefits on protecting our coral reef, which I'm very passionate about. But as well as the fact of growing in the native sand dune, back to my master's that I started a few years ago. And I actually work with different counties. Broward County is one of them down in South Florida, who actually hired someone to finish a program at the state level and find the necessary funding on building it. Because having this native sand dune, sea oaks, that little grass you see on the beach. Now, have you ever been to the beach before? Have you seen that little grass along the beach, usually next to the boardwalk? Well, that's the grass I'm talking about. And what's so amazing about this grass, I get so excited. This is the root system, because it goes down like a spider web, and it like holds the sand in place. So when the water, the waves hit the shore, it moves the sand, and in time it builds. And it gets bigger than a seawall. I'm not saying that this is a fix to climate change. What I'm saying is it's a solution for a problem that's coming our way. Building a seawall around the state of Florida, or even around an island, isn't a solution. You know, Miami Beach, Mayor Levine, when he ran for governor, when he was mayor of Miami Beach, he inserted pumps to drain the water out there on the high tide. That's a Band-Aid fix. There is no solution. So this year, or in 2020, we have so many great candidates who are running now for our local House and Senate that we need to support throughout the state. Because even though D is over in one area, C will be voting on policy that affects everyone in the state of Florida. So I ask you, if you haven't already donated or volunteered for Dean's campaign, please do so. Let's give her the Tallahassee. Running campaign is hard. I did a statewide as a first-time candidate, and I won 27% of the state of Florida. I'm very pleased by that. But I worked my tail off. I was home, never. So this year, in 2020, coming up, we need to support our candidates from all over the state. And I stand here today proudly as a openly gay male, an activist, an environmental scientist, that I too will be running for State House of Representatives in the state of Florida. I submitted my paperwork last week, and starting Tuesday after the holiday, I will be on the ground in my district knocking on doors. And that's what it takes, Steve, to win, knocking on doors. With that, we have time for a few questions.
Absolutely.
Any questions?
Any science questions?
Yes, sir.
My wife drinks bottled water, but only that processed by osmosis.
You know, bottled water is not bad. So please don't get me wrong. There's pros and cons to everything. You know, for like hurricanes and water supply, I have water bottle myself. In fact, I brought one in my bag today. I reuse it, but nonetheless, I have it myself. So it's not completely bad. So please don't let that discourage you from drinking bottled water.
Yeah, but she uses it only by osmosis.
Correct, yes, that's the part of the process of cleaning the water, correct.
What's the status of that large capacity down in Sumterville, which was approved a few years ago for, I think, taking 500,000 gallons a day to a bottling plant in Pittsburgh.
I don't know that information on top of my head.
They haven't pumped anything out of it yet.
I thought that was the case.
What's the question?
Okay, the question was, okay, a few years ago, there was a permit approved to take water here locally. What county was it?
Sumterville.
Sumterville, which is not too far from here. And even though they paid that $115 permit, that it has not yet been approved, and it has not, they have not drained or took any water from that as of today. But that's the best answer I can give you without looking at the data. Any other questions? I thought I saw a hand over here. No? Yes, sir.
David, how does the coral reef protect the Florida coast from storm surge?
Perfect. Now, when a wave forms, think of it as like that. That's the motion of the water. You think of like the water is like this. It's actually like a small circle, a little small current going up and around. And when it goes up and around, it actually hits the coral reef. And actually, the process that slows it down. So by the time it hits the shore, it won't be as powerful as it was because it's going through that process of hitting the coral reef. Now, when it hits the coral reef, it doesn't really do any damage to it. But the coral reef is our first line of defense on storm surges from hurricanes. But it's also where most of our food comes from. To those who like eating fish, almost like 90% of our fish was hatched at the coral reef. Like 90%. So it's more than just a line of defense. It's also our fishing industry. It's our tourism. It's more than just our line of defense. It's first line of defense. Does that answer your question about the current?
Yes. Now, what is the current status of that coral reef?
Not very good. Unfortunately, there are many government entities. Fish and Wildlife is one, for example. They had a meeting just 2 weeks ago down in the Keys and also in Homestead. They're traveling the state talking about it. But they are regulating on the amount of fish and boating that actually take place within a certain distance of the coral reef, which would be controlled underneath Florida Fish and Wildlife. So they're changing the policies for the best management practices to extend and find local research, working with the federal government, which is doing the research from the bleaching and different diseases. The coral reef is really sick. There's so many diseases. The coral reef is slowly dying and disappearing. It's very, very sad. But the government agencies are getting involved and using research and working with our chief science officer and others to making sure that changing the best management practices. So thank you for that question. Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering about, I didn't hear you mention anything about the Great Garbage Patch in the ocean, all the plastics. I was just wondering how big of a problem is that? Is there anything that we can do to mitigate that?
Yes, the garbage patch. That was the question. How big is it? What can we do? The garbage patch. The garbage patch outside the coral reef, in the Bahamas and the Caribbean, there's islands filled with garbage. Now, my best response to that would be there are many nonprofits and businesses that go to these places and clean up. One of these many organizations called 4Ocean. You give them a small, you can donate, you get a little cool bracelet made out of the recycled plastic that they will pick up. Now, I know them, I volunteered them for a few beach cleanups before throughout Florida. Great organization, but those are the kind of organizations that are managing that garbage area. At the state level, unfortunately, not so much. But it's all about having the proper policies and which should be controlled by our local officials, like the straws, for example.
Where does the garbage come from? Is it getting dumped there?
Where does the garbage come from? Many places. There are cruise lines that dump their stuff in the water. There are, like for example, in New York, they put their trash on a big boat, goes out. You know, it depends. But ideally, the ocean is connected to our waterway. So whatever happens on inland, Orlando area, it'll go into the river, go to Okeechobee, goes to the ocean. It's a whole connecting ecosystem. Even if it's in an aquifer. You know, I talked about the Santa Fe River, the 60 springs connected to it. Some of those springs are under the limestone, but they have inlets that trash does go in. I'm a advocate scuba diver myself, and I love scuba diving in the caves in the Ocala, Alachua County area. I just think it's so cool. And you see trash down there as well. And I ask myself the same question, how does this get here? But there's no right answer to that. Let me make you a call real quick.
Let's get him.
Yeah.
This fella here with his hand up in the blue shirt.
Oh. Yes, sir.
There's an issue going around lately about sunscreen.
Yes.
And whether or not it should be banned and how it's affecting the coral reef.
Yes.
Is this really an issue and what's behind it and
Yeah.
where is it an issue?
It's an issue. The question was the sunscreen. Some places like Key West have banned sunscreen with certain chemicals in it that actually kills the coral reef. That's another way that local government is finding solutions on protecting the coral reef. Now, that is more of a local policy, not a state thing. But ideally, local government along the coast community should really think about on banning or keeping the sunscreen being used. Because the chemicals being used in the sunscreen does play a toll on the coral reef.
Is it certain chemicals or just?
There are 6 of them within, yes.
One more quick
One more. Let me get her, she had a question real
Oh,
quick
okay,
too.
sorry.
Good question?
I wonder, do you have anything we can sign today, like a petition about the water being taken out of the river?
I was gonna do it electronically through email, if that's okay.
That's, so how do we get?
I was sending it to.
He's gonna send it to me, I'll send it to you. I'll send it to y'all.
All right. One last question, please.
Most of us know people who live in South Florida. Could you tell us exactly where the district is, where you're running?
Oh.
In case we know people?
Yes. Well, running for office is hard. And I debated if I wanted to do it again. And I live in Homestead, Miami-Dade County. So the district is all of Key West, all the Keys of Monroe County, the whole Monroe County. Homestead, South Miami-Dade, and then the rural area, all of the Everglades National Park, and then the Redlands, which is a small, well, it's a huge area actually. It's all agriculture.
What's the number?
120, the very last one, 120.
Thanks for asking that.
So thank you so much for having me. Let me tell you, my grandparents was here in the villages when you guys were doing the golf cart. They're in the process of looking for a place to live, and they saw that, and they're like, David, there's Democrats here.